Greetings, welcome back to another episode 80 of the Death Taxes and Sports Podcast, our road to episode 100. It is me and Mr. Ben Holloway for now until Gary Legend wakes up from his nap. Ben Holloway, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you, sir?
Good, man. Good. Oh, and look who joined. Oh, my man with the Lakers hat. What's going on, Gary Legend?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Great, man. Great. It's another day. Just had some salmon. Wife just made some delicious dinner. It's great. How you feeling? How was the West Coast treating you, Gary Legend?
It was fun. Can't say exactly what's going on still. I just realized that you're live, so I can't say what's going on currently, but something dope's coming. So just everybody stay tuned.
Something dope's coming. Okay. All right. Well, we're still friends, so hopefully we can
when it happens, I will gladly speak to the masses about what is going on. But
okay.
In the meantime, as you're doing your introduction, I will text both of you what's exactly happening.
Okay, and we'll keep it. Gary, I do care. You know that, right? I care about your well-being. You know that,
I know.
Right? And I also love giving you a hard time. It's great. But anyway, we got some NCAA basketball to discuss. We got the NCAA men's and women's NCAA tournament. We have the Masters coming up. So much fun. I know, Gary, you're looking forward to talking about that. The women's NCAA tournament was something that I was very interested in. This was probably one of the more exciting ladies tournaments probably of all time. And so I'm definitely looking forward to discussing this. And we're going to be discussing a little bit about these Lakers, of course, and we got to throw in a little bit of the colossal failure that is the Mavericks. But let's first start it off, Ben, about this women's tournament. We could dissect so many things. And I think first off, I have to tip my hat to Dawn Staley and what she's done these last 3 years, making it to 3 straight Final Fours, having a 36-1 record, 1 national title, 1 missed shot away from having 2 titles against Stanford back in 2021. So let's just throw out some credit and let's just say, where do we say this 3-year run is for South Carolina in the pantheon of all of sports, but maybe women's college basketball in general?
Well, I would say, that, it's been quite the hold on a second. Sorry. Gary, go for a second.
I mean, when you look at South Carolina's run, you have to give them credit because in the era of the UConns and the Tennessees and the Notre Dames and these dynasty franchises that have been, kind of hogging the spotlight in women's college basketball for the better part of the last 30 years, South Carolina kind of helped break that mold. We saw last night or Sunday afternoon that LSU wants to enter that chat too. Now, obviously, they have Kim Mulkey, so that certainly helps matters. But, yeah, we have these teams that I'm not going to say upsets the apple cart because, they belonged. It wasn't like they're just this fly-by-night team that doesn't belong. They just all of a sudden just popped up. Between the coaching and the talent that they've had there, it's worth, mention. They belong. Yeah, thank you. But at the same time, like I said, they're kind of the party crasher. They're kind of leading this next wave of who's going to be really the new blue bloods in women's college basketball and really college sports in general.
Ben?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's been quite the run, and actually sort of was going to bring up, part of the popularity that the women's game is growing is due to Dawn Staley, but it's also due to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And I think that, it's one of those things that, there have been amazing women's basketball players before. We're going to get to UConn, but 2 UConn players stick out. Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi. There has been those superstars, but it hasn't been like this. It is gaining popularity, and rightfully so. And I want to speak to not the whole race thing because I don't want to go there, but the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. Can we just let women show emotion and trash talk? They're playing sports. They're excited. I think people are like, they're not used to women showing emotion or they're not comfortable with it. It's like they're
Yeah.
talk too. They should express themselves. They should trash talk. And that is, by the way, part of the reason it's becoming more popular is because of the names and the fact that there is this little rivalries or back and forth or trash talk. I just wanted to say that I feel like more than the race thing is people are uncomfortable with women like trash talking. They're just used to women just
But
playing the game and just standing there.
yeah,
So,
but I'm gonna say, and and I'm not trying to get controversial here, but let's just call it what it is, though. Caitlin Clark did that, did this, and everyone
mm-hmm,
was applauding it. Okay, when Angel Reese
mm-hmm.
did it, everyone had an issue with it, talking about it's
Oh,
unsportsmanlike.
oh yeah.
It is a double standard, and I know that we try to avoid, trying to get political or trying to talk about race, but yes, race is involved in this. It just is, and I'm not in a position to sit here and act like it's not, because if Caitlin Clark did that during the national championship game and won, they would be celebrating her as if she's like the next thing since
Mm-hmm.
sliced bread,
Yeah.
and we know
Yeah.
that's a double standard. And let's just call it what it is
Absolutely.
the
I
fact
wasn't
that
I
I
wasn't
get what you're
minimizing
saying.
it at all. I was
Yeah,
just focusing on, but you're absolutely right. There's a double
yeah,
standard and there is a
yeah,
race factor. I just
yeah.
went
The
another
whole
direction. But you're
situation.
definitely right.
The whole situation is the female version of Larry Bird in the late '80s. Let's call it what it is. Where yes, it a race thing, but Larry Bird was one of the all-time great shit talkers in the history of sports,
Mhm.
and he was lauded for that. Oh, he's a great trash talker. He's so competitive. Meanwhile, you have players that trash talk all the time. Oh, they're thugs, and oh, they don't have any class. Let the game be the game.
Mhm.
I had no problem. I'm a big believer of keeping that same energy. So if Caitlin Clark can do the Tony Ayo, it's not the John Cena, it's the Tony Ayo. If she can do the Tony Ayo and do the whole point of the ring finger and all that, and trying and downplay, playing off the ball, playing off defense on somebody that she doesn't trust, you got to keep that same
yeah,
energy. You got to understand, like,
yeah.
and
True.
frankly, and to her credit, Caitlin Clark has come out and said there's no reason for LSU for what's her name to be vilified or
Angel Reese, Baltimore product,
Angel
by
Reese.
the
I
way.
don't know why it slipped my mind, but why Angel Reese should not be vilified, and that hey, this is a part of the game. This is good for sports. This is good
Mhm.
for college sports. We
Yeah,
need rivalries again. So
yeah, and
let LSU and Iowa be this random college sports rivalry. It's good for the sport.
yeah, and no doubt. And let's get to this national championship game. Let's spend 1 to 2 minutes because we got the men's tournament here. We could talk about this. There's definitely, but I first got to give a shout out to Angel Reese. She's a Baltimore product from my hometown. Played at St. Francis, straight baller. Played at Maryland, and also her cousin. I think Jordan Hawkins or a dude from UConn. Their cousins also from Maryland. Also won a national championship for UConn. Also another Maryland product. So Maryland's definitely represented. But anyway, let's get to this national championship game here because the one thing that I was that I really liked was just the depth of LSU, Gary. The fact that Angel Reese went out with 2 fouls, barely played the second quarter, and then their bench just straight up just shot the ball lights out.
No, that's you nailed it right on the head. Like when you have that kind of depth and that kind of shooting across the board, it makes these things easier. Like all you had to do was neutralize Caitlin Clark to an extent, or let her go off because you know that nobody else is going to score at that level or to that extent. You know, they were. You could tell LSU was willing to let her have her 40 piece, let her have her triple double, whatever the case is. She was not going to be the sole reason why they were going to lose, and that's what you saw. And frankly, LSU was the better team. Kayla Clark's was the better player overall in the tournament, but LSU had the better team, the better coaching, because in college that is where it matters the absolute most. Like LSU was better prepared. Iowa really was going to let Caitlin Clark drag them to a national championship. And as you've seen in college sports, one player can't do it all by themselves.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much did a great job with the women's game. I'll just give one more shout out to Angel Reese. 34 double doubles, NCAA Division One record, women's or men's. So, like, come on now, but she's the first women's coach to win with two different universities, obviously Baylor and now LSU. So, and only in year 2, I believe, at LSU.
Yes,
already a national champion. Like,
and 9 new players. 9. Okay, she did it with 9 new players with a 34-2 record.
Yeah.
Only 2 losses, I believe, is to South Carolina.
Yes, they were. Yep.
So, I mean, hey, Kim Mulkey, great job. And the thing is, with these 2, Caitlin Clark still has 1 more year left of eligibility. Angel Reese still has 3 years left. It's going to be pretty exciting. Definitely going to be pretty exciting. But, guys, let's kind of keep going to this. Let's got to get to the men's tournament. Ben, let's take some time when the season comes, and let's do maybe a spotlight on the top 10 rankings for preseason when it comes out for women's basketball, because there's definitely going to be some really exciting stuff. But this men's tournament, NCAA Final Four, I don't want to spend too much talking about the Final Four itself because we talked about keys to win. But, Ben, I think that first off, the San Diego State FAU game, I really feel for Florida Atlantic, but they shot themselves in the foot with some very, very, very pivotal mistakes down the road. Had the lead. They should have won that game. Too many defensive lapses, man.
The thing that stood out to me the most about that game is San Diego State couldn't hit 3 throws, but didn't matter. So they just kept on getting rebounds. The whole second half, it felt like every 3 throw they missed, but then they ended up scoring almost every possession. It's like watching it, it's like, can you get 1 rebound, FAU? Like, what? It just was. And sure, they probably, they had some turnovers and stuff like that. But I think that one of the biggest reasons they lost is all of those offensive rebounds they gave up. San Diego State was doing you a favor in missing 3 throws. And then they were getting their own rebounds. And I'm sure they didn't score on every possession, but they got a lot of points off second chance. And that really turned the game on its head. Especially because, for the most part, definitely the clock is stopped on 3 throws. But then even after you get a rebound, most of the time you're scoring within 10 to 15 seconds. So they're getting points quick. So Florida Atlantic, hell of a run, 35 wins, fantastic run. And I think that I was reading today, most of their starters, most of their guys will be back. So we're not going to sit here and predict another Final Four run, but they should definitely be really good next year as well. But yeah, I thought that they kind of, part of me wasn't that disappointed, because even though we got relatively blowout in the championship game, I think if it was FAU, UConn would have spanked them by like 20, 25. I kind of wanted the underdog, but I'm like, man, if they get there, I think UConn's just going to put a whooping on them.
Yeah, and Gary, you know what I'm getting from FAU? I'm getting Butler vibes when they made it to back-to-back national title games. Mm-hmm. There's just something about this team. I feel like with the transfer portal the way it is, with the starting lineup coming, a complete starting lineup, they're only going to get better. But FAU has something really exciting. But just real quick, what are your thoughts on San Diego State FAU? And then we'll get to this other game, and then we'll get to the championship.
No, Ben made all the valid points on that, and I would just simply say that it was a good game that, let's be honest, Florida Atlantic should have won because San Diego State kept letting them into the game. But, all things considered, they did what they had to do. And, Jeff, you're absolutely right. There's a little Butler, a little Loyola Chicago, a little George Mason about them, like, where that this isn't going to be it. And, they're on the map now. We'll see how they respond going forward. But, that will be – the game itself was excellent. I think of the games this weekend, that was probably the best of the 3 remaining games. So
it's definitely going to be pretty exciting. But but Ben, just high level, just before we get to this national championship game, because I really want to take a good 5-7 minutes talking about this one. But that
Mhm.
other Final Four game with UConn and that other team who I won't name, Miami. There were a lot
Yeah.
of things that we have said defensively. I mean, we said the keys to the game for UConn. All they had to do was just continue to be themselves. What was that? In the paint, continue to make
Mhm.
threes, lock down on defense, and they played a well-rounded overall game against a team in Miami that was 104th in defensive efficiency.
Mhm. Yeah, that game played out for the most part how we both expected. Give Miami credit for A, getting their first Final Four ever in program history, and B, they were down by 20 in that game, and I believe got all the way back to 6. You get down by 20 in the second half, you could lose that game by 25. Like, they came back. They stayed in it. They came back. They still lost by double digits, but give them a little bit of credit for not, let's say, folding the tent. They still made a run, tried to make it interesting, but it was just, if they pretty much, I mean, we saw it in the tournament. If Miami didn't score 80 points, they lost, and you weren't getting 80 against UConn, so that's kind of how that ended up working out.
Gary?
No, this was bully ball at its finest. The kid Adama Sanogo, just like as I said in the opening round game against Iona, it's the same thing. Down the paint, one move, two moves, he's either getting fouled or it's a layup, or he's making the pass to the three. Like that was fundamentals. But if you look at the coach, Dan Hurley, like he comes from the family of solid coaching fundamentals. So what we saw, we shouldn't be surprised by. Old school college basketball won out once again, and this game against Miami, like you said, Miami was going to have to outscore them by a lot. They were going to have to put big numbers, and Connecticut simply was not having that. And we always, I hate to be so cliche about it, but offense wins games, but defense certainly wins championships, and we saw that yet again.
Yeah. And the thing is like with this Miami team, UConn averaged about 24 to 26 points off of three-pointers this season. They had at least 6 players making at least 35 threes. So when you have that on top of 2 dudes that are going to give you 17 and 10, that's been the thing with the run that UConn has had, is that teams have made a couple shots, they might have cut a couple turnovers, maybe bring it with an 8, and then they go right back and make 2 or 3 pointers, and that just completely demoralizes the competition. But Ben, kind of going into this UConn national title game, we had said from the very beginning that San Diego State was going to have to make their 3-pointers. They were going to have to make their free throws. They were going to have to be efficient on offense. They were going to have to play a very perfect game because UConn was.
Yeah, UConn, as when we talked about the Final Four on Thursday's show, like all of us struggled to find a weakness. They don't have one. Rebounding, defense, 3-point shooting, like they didn't have a weakness. There was nothing to attack to beat them. They had pretty much everything covered. They had the depth, rebounding, shooting. Coach hadn't been there, but as you said, grew up in a family of that's all they did was play basketball and coach. So like there literally was no weakness. Going to the actual game, similar as I gave Miami a little bit of credit, I got to give San Diego State some credit too. They were down heavily, and they got it all the way to 60. I'm just looking right. I want to make sure I got it right. 60 to 65 with 60 to 55. Sorry, as I say, I'm going to get it right. Down by 5 points, 60 to 55. And that was 5 minutes left in the game. We have a final score of 76 to 59. So UConn closed the game on a 16 to 4 run. So they put them away when it mattered most. But ultimately, sometimes sports as simple as the best team wins.
Yeah, but
the best team won.
Yeah, but also, Gary, when I look at these numbers, right, I look at San Diego began the first half shooting 29% and trailed by 12 at halftime. They shot 29%. So you think that if they made half of those shots, they wouldn't have been down by 12. and then UConn maintained a double-digit lead through the first 10 minutes of the game. San Diego State couldn't make any shots. They only had 12 field goals with 4 assists through the first 30 minutes of the game.
And go ahead.
No, I'm just saying when you break that down, yes, UConn was the better team, but if San Diego State maybe had some better shot selection, this game I think might have been a little bit closer, Gary.
You can't go 11 minutes without making a field goal and expect to win. I don't give a damn who you play against, what level, what the stakes are. You went 11 minutes and didn't score. Like, you played right into Connecticut's hands. Like, what do you like? The fact that it was only a 12-point game at the half was kind of a good thing for San Diego State if you really think about it. They were down 20 early. Like, this game had every right to be over with and nobody would watch the second half. And to their credit, San Diego State definitely made it more of a contest. They got it to 6, and then Connecticut goes in that last run to kind of put the game away at that point. But yeah, like, if you don't score, you don't even, that long of a stretch, that's a killer. And it could have been FAU, it could have been Miami, it could have been anybody. You're not going to win a game, much less a national championship, with that kind of cold streak. It's similar, I know we're crossing into professional sports, but it's very similar to what Houston did against Golden State. You make 7 of 44 3-pointers against Golden State. You're not going to win. I don't care who you are.
26, you brought it up, so I have to comment on it. 26 in a row. They missed.
26 in a row, 7 for 44.
Oh, God. I didn't realize that. Wow. Huh.
Yeah,
but
26 in a row.
Yeah.
But we got to give a shout out to Dama Sanogo, who was the Final Four most outstanding player. But just to spend maybe 1 or 2 more minutes on this game, for me, there were just a lot of overall key takeaways. I think for UConn, they were clearly the best team in the NCAA tournament from beginning. This team had a little bit of a slide, but where do we think, Gary and Ben, just real quick, where do we think that this run ranks on, in your opinion, out of all the tournaments you've watched, one of the best runs? Because did we really expect UConn to make it to the national championship game? Like, really? Coming to the tournament.
It's funny. When they were doing their predictions, I believe Jay Billis did his predictions for the entire tournament on ESPN. He picked UConn as his national champion, and at first I was like, really? Like, I knew UConn was good, but like, national champion? And yet here we are, and he got a lot of things wrong, but that was one thing that he was absolutely right about was, UConn being the last team standing. And, it kind of feels like we go through this every few years with them. Like, they have moments where they're in a lull, they're an 11-12 loss team. They may make the tournament, they may not. They may be in the NIT, who knows? And then all of a sudden they pull a national championship out their asses. Like, it's one of those, like, they are a little wrapped in a conundrum as a school, but they produce success. I believe this is 5 championships
since 1999.
And it's 5 as they're 5 for 5 in championship games. Like, there was an argument about the blue bloods, and I'm like, yeah, Connecticut really should be in that conversation at this point.
And Texas has been very good to them because 4 of their 5 national titles have been
in Texas, right?
And you look at it: 99, 2000, 99, 2004, 2011, 2014, 2023. That's not like large gap of time when you're talking about college basketball. I mean, a 24-year period and 5 national titles. Some great recruiting classes, some decent Final Four runs, a couple conference championships, a couple top 5 finishes. How can you not claim, Ben, that this team is not considered blue blood? Yes, it's in Storrs, cold Connecticut, but damn, we got to give Connecticut some of its due.
Can't argue with facts. Can't argue with success. 5 championships in 25 years. And I want to say this also. They, as far as dominance tournament run by the numbers themselves, their point differential was the 5th over the 6 games, was the fifth largest of any team ever in the NCAA tournament. So that's a pretty dominant run. And then they played 17 teams, not in the Big East. They won all 17 games, and they won all 17 by double digits. So if you talk about dominance, there you go. There's dominance for you.
No,
Oh, man.
it really is one of the great runs that you'll see. And like, it wasn't like they were winning at the buzzer or 2-point winner. They were beating everybody up along the way. Like, they won every game by double figures. You know, they turned the national championship game from a blowout to a close game to a blowout, all within like a 20-minute stretch. Like, this was one of the best 6-game runs by any college team that you're going to see. And it really, it's been some time, but now the question is, how do they follow up? Because as you've seen, we've talked about it. They've won 5 titles in 25 years, but they don't go back to back, or there's a fall off the following year. Oh, and sidebar, another fun stat: 25 years, 5 championships, 3 different head coaches.
Yep.
I mean, when you really think about this, and we'll get to another exciting topic of the Masters here soon, but this, UConn is one of the more consistent programs. I mean, you look at the Michigan States; they haven't won a national title since 2000. Duke hasn't won one since 2015. UNC during the period had 3 in 12 years with Roy Williams. I mean, what we say, let's look at men's and women's. 16 national titles since I think 1991 between both the women's and men's program. Wouldn't we say that this is one of the better men to female duos as far as just pure dominance in the game of college basketball, Ben and Gary?
It might be the best. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Like, if we're being honest, I believe UConn women are what? 11 and 1? 11 and 1 in the national championship?
Yep. And then the last one was against the South Carolina.
So 11 and 1, 5, so 16 and 1.
Yeah. It doesn't get much better than that.
It really you can't say that about any other school but them.
And then if you want to add more to that, Ben, it's 29 straight Elite Sweet 16s for UConn women and 14 straight Final Fours up until this year. Yeah. And they had how many undefeated seasons? I think they had 4 undefeated seasons between 2001 and 2010, and then 4 straight national titles with Breanna Stewart.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that they won 110 games in a row. I think that was the record. 111. There we go. Gary's got me. There we go.
They've had streaks of 70, 90, and 111. Like, what?
Yeah, man, it's great. And, it really is. But, we can talk about this. We're going to get back to basketball, but we're just going to pivot here a little bit. And I just want to make sure that we are staying on task here. But we're going to talk just a little bit about these Masters here. And, Ben, can Scottie Scheffler be the first one to win back-to-back since Tiger Woods did it in 2000, 2001?
Definitely can, but I am going to go – I don't know if we want to get to winners. Well, yeah, I'll just answer your question. We'll give our winners at the end, or just predictions. I mean, it's golf. We're all probably going to be wrong anyways. But as far as Scheffler goes, he's been on quite the run the last 2 years. I mean, so many tournaments won, number 1 in the world for a lot of that time. Like, he has been dominant. Not Tiger dominant, because guess what? There will never be Tiger dominant. No one is ever going to get to that level. I remember conversations like 10 years ago about how Rory is going to Tiger's majors. Yeah, what happened to that? Like, come on now. There is no Tiger. It's Tiger and Jack, and that's it. You're never going to see it again, as far as especially Tiger's dominance. So Scheffler has played unbelievable. The course sets up really well for his game, but I just, you said it, 2000, 2001. It's been a long time since repeat. So if I'm just going to answer it bluntly, I don't think he does, no.
Gary, any thoughts?
Yeah, not much on the golf. If it ain't Tiger, don't care. No, no. Obviously, Tiger Woods would be the sentimental favorite, but I think Scheffler should be the odds-on favorite to win and to go back to back. It's been a long time, and somebody's due. And from what I've seen, this kid's pretty good. So
I mean, you look at the tournaments that he's won. He's won some pretty good tournaments and some very tough golf courses. I mean, he won the Waste Management Phoenix Open twice since February of last year. He won the WCG Dell. He's won the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and then he won this year's Players Championship at TPC Sawgrass. I mean, TPC Sawgrass is not one of the easiest ones. But Ben, I was texting you, and I was telling you about some of these changes. And on the par five 13th hole, I guess it's being known for the famous dog leg. I don't know why, was pushed back by 35 yards. So stretching the total distance back to 535 yards. So it could cut down any possible eagles and make it less of a scoring hole.
Yeah, 35 yards is significant. Even for these professional golfers, that's a big difference. I mean, that's probably you got at least 30 people, let's say, on average, who will not hit that in two. Whereas if it was the 35 yards shorter, those 30 people could hit in two. So, yeah, that's a pretty significant change.
And then the second one, so the last year's par 5 15th hole was extended by 20 yards, and no eagles were made during the 2022 tournament.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, we can sit here and talk about all the, semantics of golf, but let's just get straight to the winners here because Gary looks pretty bored. Ben, who's your winner?
Oh, hey,
you gotta get some love to golf, man. It's the Masters, man.
I'm not hating golf. It's just that again,
he's just an honest man.
It's not Tiger Woods. I don't care. No offense.
No worries. We got you, buddy. We got you.
Hey, he's just being honest. I like it. I'm going to go and credit to Mark Schlabach, because if I said his name right, because I would not pick this name, but I am now because of him. Soon Jae Im. He
win something? Yeah.
He was runner-up in 2020 at the Masters. He's won twice on tour, and last year he held the first-round lead. So he's had success. He's confident, and majors tend to be first-time winners quite a bit. So who's to say he couldn't get it done? So you know what? I'm gonna say his name. But I will. One thing that I am watching and I'm wondering is Rory ever going to get a Masters? That's the storyline. That's the other storyline to watch. For me, it's who wins, obviously. How does Tiger do? Because I love watching Tiger. I love him out there. If he's struggling or not, the game is better with him in it. So how does Tiger do? Does Rory win? And who overall wins? That's my story.
Yeah. I'm going Scotty Scheffler, man. I mean, the man has been dominant, and I think that the type of tournaments matter. I think the Players' Championship is a very underrated and very underappreciated tournament, in my opinion. It's one of my non-major favorites. I would consider it like a minor league type tournament. I think that course is very tough.
The golfers call it the fifth major.
Yeah,
the players for years.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I'm just going to go ahead with him. I mean, he has a hot hand, but again, I think that par 5. I think what they're doing with the par 5 is going to be very interesting. But we were going to talk a little bit about the MVP race here, Gary. But I feel like that's getting boring because I don't think there's really any major changes. We know it's between Embiid, Giannis, and Joker. But we'll just say real quick, 30 minutes, because I want to talk about these Dallas Mavericks. Has anything changed for you, gentlemen, as far as the MVP race from our last conversation?
No.
I want it to be Joel Embiid. I think it'll be Jokic.
Okay. Ben, for you?
I'm sticking with Embiid.
Okay. All right. This Mavericks debacle, it's complete meltdown mode. And for me, this is a pivotal. I want to frame this into the kind of like two minor segments. One, the Mavericks' future as a whole, because they have no assets now because of this trade. They have no young pieces. They have no draft capital. And And then I want to look at it from just like their future, but then I also want to look at it from, you know, Luka's just placed in the basketball hierarchy when it comes to, I think, his effort, his conditioning, and just his ability to just get better. He's getting a lot of little nicks. But Gary, I want to throw this to you first because I'm really curious about your thoughts. I mean, Ben, your answers matter too, I guess.
I mean, as I've said many times before, we are in the era of the failed experiment when it comes to the NBA and sports in general. And Dallas will most definitely go down as one of the bigger failed experiments because, yes, you have the offensive talent, but defensively, you were the drizzling shits before getting Kyrie Irving. You're the drizzling shits now. There's a level of you made this move, and I understand the gamble. You're shooting your shot right now for a championship, but you're probably not even going to make the playoffs. And when we're looking at it, the future of Kyrie Irving and seeing how that's going to go, I don't think the question is, will Lucas stay in Los Angeles? Will stay in Dallas, or will he see how I brought Los Angeles in the equation, or will he choose to go someplace else? I understand Mark Cuban's intent. His intent was pure, but this is backfiring in a way that I don't think anybody could have imagined. And yeah, there's going to be seismic changes. I don't think they're going to get rid of Jason Kidd yet. I think that, he is a point of calmness or a point of order within that organization that I think that he'll be around for a little bit. But I can easily see that relationship between him and Luka fraying to the point where Lucas are going to start looking elsewhere because, unlike Dirk, he doesn't mind waiting.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, I think it's real. And Ben, I know that you're definitely eager to go on Luka, but I think, this is a very pivotal moment for the Mavericks franchise for the future. Because if they lose Luka, I think he's going to go. I could see them being at the bottom of the league for a very, very, very long time until they can recoup some draft capital. But yes, I think Luka's going to the Lakers. It's going to happen within the next 2 years.
Luka and Lakers begin with an L. Just throwing it out there.
Yep. It's going to happen. I love to see it. But Ben, take away the floor, sir. What is your gripe? Not taking away Gary's gripes, but what is Ben's gripe on Luka?
So here's the thing: we watch the game, we understand the game, and then we can look at stats. And his numbers are phenomenal. He's number 2 in the league in scoring, but just the eye test, there's just something off, and it feels like I mean, we're not going to say he is depressed, but the way he looks it looks like he's depressed or at least frustrated. And his body language is just awful all the time. And if your best player is setting that example, that is not good. And maybe there's nothing going on off the court. And I'm not saying, he has mental health issues. So don't anyone really allude to that. But the eye test is he gets so frustrated and he can't keep in his frustration. And then he starts barking at the refs and not going back on defense. He will never be a good defender. But the fact that he doesn't try on defense so many times, if I was his teammate, I'd be like, bro, I don't care if you're a magician on the other end, you got to at least try on defense. Kyrie Irving is not a good defender, but he tries. He runs around. He tries his hardest on defense. Part of that is due to LeBron in a way, because he really started getting more focused on that end when he was with LeBron. But still, Luka just doesn't try. And that body language, it's just it brings the whole team down when your leader just looks always so annoyed, so frustrated, and he's your best player. It's just, I don't know, man. It's the eye test just says that, if that is your leader, you have to have some leadership skills. And where are they?
No,
I don't
you're
know.
Ben. You're absolutely right on that. And he's gone on the record saying like that he's not playing with that same level of joy or happiness that he once did. And there's two schools of thought. School A is suck it up. You're getting paid millions of dollars to go play a sport that kids go play on the playground for free. On the flip side of that, you realize like that their success is directly tied to him. And if he's happy and he can be productive, then the sky's the limit. You saw them take out Phoenix last year in the playoffs and just embarrass them on Phoenix's own home court in game 7. That was peak fun having Luca. Like that was, in my opinion, like the joy that he is talking about. He's not having that fun this season. And no matter what they try to do to help him, it's just not working. And we keep alluding to it. I'm having a hard time seeing him in a Dallas Mavericks uniform long term.
Yeah, I mean, like I think leadership is a very big thing, and I kind of when you said the Phil experiment, I look into I just look in the overall product of the NBA right now, and I look at the Western Conference, and I look at how much of a mess it is. And yes, Denver has been a number or has the best record, but I don't think that they're the most overwhelmingly best one seed that we've seen. And then I look at the East. I mean, it's been pretty much the top 3 teams, and then it's just kind of been like average with everybody else. I just want to ask, like, how are we liking when you also consider Golden State's 30 losses on the road?
Mhm.
Um, where's the state of the NBA as far as just like an overall product, Ben?
Uh, I would say the West being so wacky has a lot to do with injuries. AD
Exactly.
obviously missed a lot of time. LeBron missed a lot of time. I mean, Booker, I think, missed almost a month with his hamstring stuff. Obviously, KD missed time with both the Nets and the Suns. Clippers right now without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard is always, are they playing? I don't know. Like both of them are injured probably more than maybe not half the time, but it seems like when they're on the court, it's almost a surprise at this point. So you got that. Even Jokic has missed some games, not too many. Uh, Ja Morant, we know obviously missed games for injuries and the other stuff. We're gonna leave it at that. Golden State, Curry was out for like a month. Like this is the whole West. You got Carl Anthony Towns, Minnesota's right now is in 9th place, missed like 3 months. The Pelicans, Zion Williamson, I don't think has played at all. And then they were missing Brandon Ingram. Like the West is jumbled the way that it is, has a lot to do with injuries. And I think in the East, it's been clear for probably 2 or 3 years the top 3 teams are Philly, Boston, and Milwaukee. And I don't necessarily think that's bad, like, because that allows, I think, rivalries and stuff to kind of form. But would it be, I mean, would it be better for the NBA if another team in the East made some more noise? Maybe, but look at the star power on those 3 teams. You got Tatum and Jalen Brown. You got Embiid and Harden. You got Giannis. Like, is the NBA really complaining that those are the 3 best teams? Look at the star in the East. Look at the star power. So I think the NBA is fine. I don't see anything to be too concerned about.
All right, Gary?
I agree with Ben. I think that if anything, this has been a weird season, and my gripe will be speak about this to some extent. But this has just been one of those years in which we see kind of the balance of power shift from one conference to another. Sometimes within one season itself, you see, like you said, Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, like they are the clear cut class in the Eastern Conference. Right now, your top 3 seeds are 3 teams. Well, excluding Denver, are three teams that I frankly didn't expect to see at the top. That includes Sacramento and Memphis. In Memphis, it's more of the longer term issues that I see, or the bigger picture issues that I see being their downfall. But yeah, there's no team in the West that you trust, and that includes the defending NBA champions. Like there's this weird. The parity is real in the West. Like that part, I can say like when 5 through 8, 5 through 9 are all separated by a game in the win column, not a game in the loss column, a game in the win column. Like this is going to make this week so much more, so much more fun, and try to see where the chips are going to lie. Like, the Lakers being a half game out of 6, but at the same time they're 2 games out of 11th, where Dallas is currently sitting. So there's a lot of,
Yeah, the one matchup I'm really looking forward to seeing, if it is possible, Ben, is Golden State versus potentially
Phoenix.
Golden State versus.
I know where you're about.
Not even Phoenix. The Kings.
No.
Oh, versus the Kings. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought you were going to Golden KD against his old team.
Well, no, because because you look at how bad defensively the Kings are. The Kings are horrendous defensively.
They just outscored
horrendous. Yeah, I mean, Golden State can get hot. You got Andrew Wiggins coming back. I mean, what are your thoughts on that series, Ben?
Just in the West, to further your guys' point, just in the Western Conference, they're the 3rd worst at defense in points per game, 118. And then going to the East, let me just count. Yeah, they're like the 5th worst defensive team by points per game. So good luck against Golden State if that's the matchup. I honestly, given all the road struggles for Golden State, I get it. But now there's talk, obviously, Wiggins is coming back. Will he be Wiggins of the finals last year? Probably not. But will he be pretty good? Yes. So I can't see if that's the matchup. I can't see it going the Kings' way. I think they'll win a game or two, but I don't see it being 7 games. I mean, given the road struggles of the Warriors, maybe, but I just think that the Kings, you had an amazing season. You can build for the future. It's not your time. It's just not.
Yeah, but if they do it right, though, Gary, I'm telling you, the sky could be every team. I've said this before. It was with the Lakers before, with Shaq and Kobe. When you look at, Golden State reminds me of. They remind me of the '94 Houston Rockets team that won the championship, and they were kind of sluggish.
95.
And they still 95. I'm sorry, and they still got it done. I just think playoff basketball on the road is a lot different than playoff basketball during the regular season. I just think this team just doesn't care about seeding in the regular season.
No, you're right. And I think this will be the first postseason where we truly see seeding kind of doesn't matter. I've already gone on the bold prediction that either Sacramento or Memphis, or perhaps both, are not going to make it out the first round of the playoffs. I can see both teams, especially if that matchup is Sacramento and Golden State. I'm sorry. I love Sacramento. It's been a hell of a year for them. I'm very happy to see them, out of the doldrums of the basement of the Western Conference and back into the playoff picture. But at that point, I'm going to be more willing to trust the defending champions to be able to go into Sacramento against an untested Kings team and kind of have their way with them almost.
I mean, imagine the backlash if that's the matchup and the Warriors lost. You think you're getting criticized now?
Yeah.
just do that and see what the backlash is.
And then, potentially if everything kind of plays out how it's currently seated right now, I know we're going to talk about the Lakers in a second, but if you're telling me LeBron, AD in a 7-game series versus Ja Morant, I'm going to take LeBron and AD in a 7-game series versus Ja Morant. I'm sorry.
And can I just say that this Lakers team is better than their record? This roster is better than the record. The record was heavily reliant on the I'm sorry, my French, the crappy roster that they had before. Hence why they made all these trades. This team, I think, is roster wise, when healthy, is one of the top 3 to 4 best rosters in the West, in my opinion. And I would not be surprised. And Ben, perfect transition. Let's talk about these Lakers. Just talk to me, man.
I, I think that either if they are able to get to the 6th seed or if they have to go into the play-in, most likely they will get the 7. So most likely they're playing either the Kings or Memphis, and I definitely got them winning that series. Now, the next round, it matters a little bit because in a way, I almost feel like they would rather hear me out. I think they would rather have to go through the Kings in Memphis in the first 2 rounds, and that would stand on the Kings winning the first round. So, in order for them to play those 2 teams, and what I'm trying to say is if they can avoid Golden State or Phoenix until the Western Conference Finals, then that is their ideal scenario. I think if they can get through the first 2 rounds not playing Golden State and not playing Phoenix, they got a chance. I actually was kind of thinking about this before that, I think Phoenix, if they end up as the 4, which is almost a lock, they're going to beat Denver in round 2. That's just what it is. Like, Phoenix is loaded. And I was thinking, basically, like, I kind of, as far as the seedings, how they are right now, I would not be surprised if it's Phoenix versus the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. I mean, if they got to play the Warriors though, if they play the Warriors in the second round, that'd be a lot tougher. That's why I'm like, it's kind of like they would love to see Memphis and Sacramento the first two rounds, but if they got to go up against Golden State, I'm not quite sure I'd pick them to win that series.
I mean, that's facts. I mean, Lakers are, man, just 2 seconds on Phoenix. I would not say Phoenix is loaded, but I would say that when you have Kevin Durant, it masks a slew of other issues. But if they're going to make a run, DeAndre Ayton has got to be that consistent dynamo in the post. And he has to be more aggressive if they really think they're going to win a championship. But that's all I'm going to say. But Gary, your thoughts on the Lakers?
All things considered with them, the fact that they missed LeBron James for 27 games, and instead of the bottom falling out, they hovered around 500. They were 13 and 14. I think that was huge for them. Because in the previous season where LeBron has been out for extended time, like they kind of wilted and folded in pressure, and they could have easily packed it in and said, "All right, we're not going to do this year." But they retooled at the trade deadline. AD has played healthy. I'm not going on wood because God help me, he's a tweak away from a bad foot or a bad back, and then we're back where we started. But at least, we find ourselves in the position to potentially make. I said, just a few minutes ago, there are 5 teams separated by a game in the win column from 6 to 11. I think you give me relatively healthy LeBron, relatively healthy AD, that bench, that supporting cast, and a weak top in the Western Conference. Like they have the tools to at least make it to the conference finals. I highly doubt that that's what will happen, but they have the roster to make that deep of a run. And I think their best case scenario would be to be the 7th seed and play a Memphis in the first round. I can see Sacramento out athletic, out being the superior athletes to them, and you can tire out a LeBron and AD at this point. And I can see Sacramento doing that. I don't see Memphis doing that. I think Memphis is on a path of self-destruction for various reasons. But this season in which they wanted to be the villains and be the bad guys, and everybody wants to root for the bad guys, sorry, not this year. So
Yeah,
I think
facts.
this team has the potential to go to the conference finals. I think at best first round.
And look, I think I'm more interested in the Western Conference Finals than I am the East, just because of how wacky and how crazy it is. It's going to be very, very, very exciting basketball. But Ben Holloway, Ben's impression, sir. What comes to mind?
Oh, thought you were gonna give me something. No.
Well, let me give you. Okay, how about this?
All right.
You're the first overall because we're going to be transitioning to NFL. CJ
Mhm.
Stroud or Bryce Young, as far as your quarterback, and would the height of Bryce Young make you hesitant to draft him number 1 overall?
I would say the height would not. We've seen, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Kyler Murray, like those guys are, 2 Hall of Famers, most likely. One younger guy that has had a lot of success, and they're either 6 feet or under, all of them. So the height, I would say no. And something is telling me athleticism wise and as far as game tape, uh, it kind of leans me towards Stroud, but at the same time, something is telling me that Young is going to end up having the better career. I
Okay.
just, it seems like he's kind of got that it factor where he's like biggest moments he comes up, and not to say CJ Stroud hasn't, but I think CJ Stroud is definitely who I think that's who the Panthers are going to pick because he is more athletic and he's taller and he probably has the higher ceiling. But I just something has told me for months that Bryce Young is just going to be a better NFL quarterback. It's just a gut
Okay.
feeling.
All right. Anthony Richardson potentially being a top 10 draft pick, knowing that he's not ready to start right away.
Yeah. Anthony Richardson is just, I don't know. Uh, nothing against the man, and I hope I'm wrong. I dead hope I'm wrong because I wish that really all these athletes are successful, young athlete, whatever the case may be. But I just think that he's getting way too much hype and way too much love. And I honestly could see it working out like Jake Locker, who was like out in 4 years, he was out of the game. Like, I hope I'm wrong, but
I tell you what, though,
I don't see it, man. I just don't.
they worship Jake Locker up here like he is like God. I tell you, they love some Jake Locker up here. All right. Sounds good, sir. Sounds good. We're going to keep it under an hour. Those were 2 thoughts that I had for Ben's impressions. But Gary, I want to get your gripes in because I think it's absolutely hilarious and how serious you look. But please give us your gripes, sir.
So this week's gripe isn't necessarily a gripe. It's more of an interesting stat.
Okay.
Right now, the Milwaukee Bucks are 57-22. I say that because they represent the last team that has the potential to win 60 games in a season this year. If Milwaukee loses one more game, it'll be the first time since 2001 that no team in the NBA had succeeded in winning 60 games. And I feel like that is a streak that does not get the same respect because you look at some of the teams, I believe I know the stat is something like 16 of the 30 teams in the NBA right now have at least 60 games in the season once in that time between since 2001. Except for the Nets are the only, I believe the Nets are one, Charlotte's one. I could go down the list, but more than half the league has had at least a 61 season at least once in the last 22 years, and you can see that streak possibly coming to an end. And I think that kind of goes back to our talk about parity. We don't want one team to just be head and shoulders above the rest. We kind of spent the better part of the last decade dealing with Golden State and their 60 to 70 wins each season. And, I think as damning as that stat is, I think it provides for a much more entertaining NBA. And who knows, this might be the beginning of a streak where the teams don't win 60 games for a couple of years in a row. Like we're going to have more teams hovering around 500 than we have at that point. And I think that is definitely something to to keep an eye on going forward.
And and we're almost at the hour here, but pretty much. But I will say though, the NBA. Would you guys say that? As I say, the NBA wanted more parity for a reason, and they wanted other small market teams to be relevant. I.e., when you look at Denver, you look at Cleveland, um, you look at some of these other teams. You look at Milwaukee. There's a better disbursement of talent, and then
Mhm.
the supermax, right? Being able to get more money with the team that originally drafted you versus not. Would you say that it's worked out pretty well so far when you consider that just that stat that Gary put out there, Ben?
I mean, look at all the young stars we got. I know we talked about Luca and we talked about, the negatives about him, but everything that he's accomplished, you got, Embiid, although he's getting older, he's still on the other side of 30, I think, younger than 30. You got Giannis, you have Tatum and Jalen Brown, you got, Jokic, obviously, you got Devin Booker, Jamal Murray. Like, you got a lot of young talent. You got a lot of good names. I'm not worried about the NBA at all. You got plenty of talented guys.
No doubt, no doubt. But no, Gary, your final thought on that. Would you feel like are you excited about the disbursement of talent? That kind of contradicts my other question about the product of the NBA, but hey, it is what it is.
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think, if you have a poor team in a smaller market, a big star isn't going to help matters. But at the same time, you look at who's at the top in each conference right now.
Hmm.
In the East, all right. Well, we can exclude the East because bigger cities, Philly, Milwaukee's not a bigger city, but they've had the rich history in basketball, so so they get added to the club, and then Boston is Boston. In the West, Memphis, Denver, Sacramento, Phoenix, the Clippers. Like, that's your top 5 seeds right there. Like, so it speaks to the smaller markets. It speaks to having homegrown talent, and really, they've done it more through the draft than free agency, and I think that's the difference. And I think for the smaller market teams, it's good for them to go that route. So I don't know. I think it's ultimately a good thing for the NBA when you have these matchups. It's kind of like when you simulate 2K all season long, and then you get a Denver Atlanta NBA Finals because what? Like, that's just kind of how that happens. Like, so like it's good to kind of see that come to life in real, in real life.
Okay, facts. Well, gentlemen, this was a great episode. Here's what I'm going to say, just to kind of wrap up. I'm going to give my own thought. The future of sports is very, very, very bright, gentlemen. When you look at the NFL, you look at the product of the NFL and all of these great young quarterbacks. When you look at Justin Herbert, when you look at Joe Burrow, you look at Pat Mahomes, you look at Lamar Jackson. I mean, so many great young quarterbacks. You look at the quarterbacks that are be coming in. You look at the NBA with the G League. You look at all the young talent in women's basketball. You look at NBA. You got a lot of players under the age of 25 who are just going to be transcending talents, and there's going to be a great disbursement of talent all across the board. I mean, this is a really exciting time for sports, gentlemen. And I would say that I feel like we're old enough now to where we can remember sports for the last 20 years, 20, 25 years. And I can say that it's a very exciting time. And I'm really excited to be able to talk this with you guys, especially with the NFL draft coming up. We're getting to episode 100, where we're going to be talking about our NFL coming up, and hopefully my Broncos actually win more than 5 games. Um, but
I think
other
you
than
just
that,
end on that. That's it. That's the last statement of the show right there.
but we're gonna get there. But hey, to all my fans, not my fans, to all of our fans and supporters, we thank y'all for joining us. And pray for my Denver Broncos, y'all. All right, peace out.